The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has thanked the outgoing Metropolitan Police Commissioner on her final day in the job. Dame Cressida Dick quit after Sadiq Khan criticised her handling of racist, misogynist and homophobic messages and basically said, "I have just lost confidence in her." Those were messages that were shared by a group of officers based at Charing Cross Police Station. A series of other scandals also plagued the Met during Cressida's time in post. Our Home and Security editor Mark White looks back over her career.
As Scotland Yard's first female commissioner, Cressida Dick was always assured of her place in history. But the country's most senior policing role is never far from controversy. It is the most political of policing jobs, where issues managed are often of national significance. And straddling the demands of a Labour mayor and Conservative Home Secretary only add to the complexities. But for Cressida Dick, it was a series of scandals within her force that chipped away at her authority, ultimately leading London Mayor Sadiq Khan to withdraw his support.
But I'm not going to hide from the fact that I lost confidence in her. I'm not going to hide from the fact that we've had in our city a series of devastating scandals, overt racism, sexism, misogyny, discrimination, homophobia. We've had trust confidence from Londoners in the police service at rock bottom, and that's one of the reasons why I lost confidence in her, and it's one of the things I'll be looking for in a new commissioner, how they will address some of these serious issues that, frankly speaking, the current commissioner failed to address.
Much of the recent pressure on Cressida Dick followed the fallout from the abduction, rape and murder of Sarah Everard by one of the Met's own officers. As appalling as that was, it was compounded by the Met's handling of the subsequent vigil, which descended into scenes of violence. The murders of sisters Biba Henry and Nicole Smallman in a North London park brought further outrage after it was revealed two of the officers who should have been guarding the murder scene had taken selfies next to the sisters' bodies. The final straw came after the police watchdog published messages sent by officers based at a central London police station that used sexist, racist and homophobic language. With Sadiq Khan's refusal to back her, the Commissioner, who'd managed to ride out previous controversies, had no choice but to resign.
He has left me no choice but to step aside. I say this with deep sadness and regret. Undertaking this role, a Crown appointment, as a servant of the people of London and the United Kingdom, has been the greatest honour and privilege of my life.
Cressida Dick agreed to stay on while arrangements were made to find a successor, but today she finally leaves her post.
Right, on the floor, please, on the floor.
Among rank-and-file police officers, there was widespread support for a commissioner who, unlike some of her predecessors, was largely seen as having their backs. But ultimately, it was the behaviour of some of those officers who brought an end to the career of Scotland Yard's first female commissioner. Mark White, GB News.
My next guest is the man who inspired my own son to serve in the Metropolitan Police for 5 years. Like him, Peter Neyround went to Winchester College and to Oxford University. Peter served for 30 years as a police officer in Hampshire, West Mercia, and then became one of the youngest ever chief constables when he took over the Thames Valley Force. He set up and ran the National Policing Improvement Agency as CEO, and then in 2010 carried out the Review of Police Leadership and Training report, which led to the establishment of the National College of Policing. Peter, really great to see you. We've talked about you coming to do this conversation, and I'm thrilled to bits that we can do it today. In some respects, listening to Mark's report there, and as you know, I don't want to drill too much purely into Cressida's time, but the lessons that we can learn from it. And it strikes me that much of what's been wrong about the Met has been about leadership and training. Not only leadership at the very top, but amongst the middle ranks, and wrong uns getting into the force and not being trained properly. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair a fair summary. I mean, I rather doubt whether Cressida's grateful for the mayor's parting thanks, because the way that her term ended was I think rather it diminished the mayor in the process, I think is the nice way to put it. But undoubtedly, you're right. There are definite issues in terms of frontline leadership, as well as grappling with some of the multitude of problems that the force has faced over the last, not just the last over the last decade or so.
And I mentioned in the introduction, and Mark referred to it, the issue at Charing Cross. You know why Alex left the force, and it was nothing to do with people at your level or fellow PCs and sergeants. It was that middle management. That's what failed at Charing Cross.
Yes, I mean, it's particularly something that resonates with me, because I'm running a program for senior leaders. I've got 20. I've got nearly 40 Met senior leaders on the program at the moment, and that sense of people not grasping issues, not being prepared to challenge, they very much regret. And what happened at Charing Cross was absolutely in the middle level, as far as I can see. It's very, very difficult for a commissioner to deal with that. Certainly in the kind of timescale that Khan was suggesting, it's not straightforward. And of course, the police service at the moment is embarked on recruiting about 50,000 new officers, really in a mad rush. I mean, there are some significant dangers further down the track.
And I mean, let me just underline that word dangers, because if wrong-uns do get in and then hold the warrant card, and we know as bad as going right up to murder. I mean, there was a guy who was recruited, got into the police force, was trained, was led, and ends up stalking, abusing his warrant card and murdering a woman.
Yeah, I mean, it's the death of Sarah Everard was one of the most terrible events in policing in the last 40 years. I mean, I joined 41 years ago. I can't think of many incidents that are quite that level of resonance. And it's a big signal, because it comes against the backdrop of the plummeting rates of prosecution on rape and serious sexual assault, and a whole range of other issues around the relationship and the trust between police and women. You've got the challenges of tackling domestic homicide and domestic violence. You've got the challenges of improving performance on rape and serious sexual assault, and then inside you've got the various issues emerging in terms of behaviour towards women. These are not light challenges. It's ironic that they flawed, or they're one of the factors that have flawed the first female commissioner. But it's not all about whether they're male or female commissioners. It's about a collective effort across the organisation to tackle the issues and to face forward in thinking through who you're recruiting, how you're recruiting them, and also how you're sorting out the ones who show the wrong attitude at an early stage in their service.
Let me ask you what it is, an overtly political question, but do you think that aspiration to leadership, and indeed quality of leadership, and I've got a specific question for you about the Cambridge group at the end of our time, but the introduction of powerful mayors like Sadiq Khan and police and crime commissioners diminishes the capacity of a chief constable to lead his or her force?
Well, not of itself. I mean, there's a range of things that have presented a problem. One of which is, it's a really significant factor in the Charing Cross case, is that the chief is no longer in control of the process of dismissal. I know it's fine having an independent element, although I have to say the IOPC didn't exactly cover themselves with glory in the length of time they took to investigate the incidents, nearly 4 years. But also the one of the things that Cressida was criticised for was the not dismissing the officers involved. Well, it wasn't her decision. The independent process, and I've spoken to any number of my of my colleagues who are currently serving, and they're furious with the fact that they find themselves having to retain officers because the independent process have somehow deemed them still to be suitable to be in service. I would definitely have dismissed them.
Yes. Well, I'm glad. I wish you were there to do it then, which takes me perfectly to the final question, and that is when you talked about training a group or working with a group of 30, 40 up-and-coming men and women who are the future top leaders of the police force at Cambridge University. Do you end your day feeling optimistic about the future, thinking in their hands we are going to crack this, or it is going to remain a work in progress for a decade?
No, I do end the day feeling optimistic. I listened to them on Friday doing, with the challenge, for example, of what they would do to tackle violence against women. And they were compelling. They absolutely committed and compelling, fully appreciating the scale of the challenge and the importance of the challenge. And, we're teaching them evidence-based approaches to trying to tackle the problems. And they came up with a compelling set of solutions that if they get the support, which I'm pretty sure they will do, get the support to put them in place, they will be able to make, serious progress for the future. And that level of optimism has to be there for the next commissioner.
Indeed. Well, I look forward to meeting them, which I think we're still working on, but hopefully that will also happen. But for the time being, Peter, always a joy to see you, and thank you so much for finding so much time for us this Sunday afternoon. Thank you.